I'm currently writing 2 books. I had never written a book before. It's always been my dream. It's everything I've ever wanted to do. And the only reason I got these opportunities is because I started posting on LinkedIn. Writing books wasn't my goal, but it was my dream. And it did happen organically because I put my thoughts out in the universe. So I think as a business owner, you've got all these ideas about how LinkedIn or social might benefit your business. But I'm telling you, some of the biggest things that are going to happen to you are things you never even expected.
Welcome to LinkedIn Marketing Mastery.
I'm really, really excited for this episode because Adam is one of my favorite writers on LinkedIn. I would probably say the number one, because anytime I read something that Adam's written, I feel something. It makes me feel something and think about something in particular. And this value shift and this perspective shift is what a really, really good writer does. So if someone has not had the pleasure to see Adam's content on LinkedIn, Adam is a ghostwriter and a personal branding expert. And he's done quite the impossible thing of building a 6-figure business in less than 2 years, completely from scratch. He's got millions of eyeballs for his clients. His clients have raised over $10 million in capital and also over $500,000 in course sales. And he's also currently working on the first 2 books that he's been hired to write. And Adam, really, really excited to have you here today. I want to jump right into the conversation. And the first question I'd really like to ask you is, why LinkedIn, of all things? What is the benefit of showing up? What's the benefit of having content on your personal page going out if you're any kind of business owner?
It's so funny because, my background, I worked in finance in a corporate job for 6 years. And one day I basically woke up and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't call another financial advisor. I'm done wearing the suit and tie. I got to go do my own thing. And what I always wanted to do was write. And I didn't know where else to write, but I had a LinkedIn account. So I figured, what the heck? I might just start writing on LinkedIn. And I didn't understand the platform. I had zero strategy whatsoever. I was just posting whatever I thought was cool to write about. And that literally has turned into, like you said, a 6-figure business within 2 years for me. So if that's not enough of a case study or enough of a social proof for the benefits of just getting your ideas out there, it's remarkable. Sometimes I think people on LinkedIn like to talk about how LinkedIn changed my life, and it feels like a cliche and you kind of laugh at it. And then it happens to you and you go, oh, they weren't just trying to sell me on a course or something like that. Like, this actually can change your life. So I think LinkedIn specifically is a great platform because you don't have to have this massive following for things to change for you. I worked with a coaching client last year who had fewer than 1,000 followers. He wrote a really, really solid post. It went super viral and he got box seats to an NFL game here in the US. He got a bunch of followers. He got a bunch of investors. So look, it's a tremendous platform for reach. You're going to have all these ideas in your head about how LinkedIn is going to benefit your business. Those are going to happen. And then the biggest things that are going to happen are the ones you never expected. So it's just a wild place.
It is a really wild place, but I know how it worked for you. But here to challenge you a little bit, if the founder or CEO of a successful business that's already making, let's say, 50K a month listens to this podcast and they're not on LinkedIn, what would you say to them to make it worth them?
There's zero drawback, right? And we look at what the future of marketing is becoming and what the future of marketing will be. You can see the trends that are significantly weighing out in favor of founder-led marketing, right? Traditional media sources, we can look at all the numbers all we want. It's not to say television is dead, radio is dead. Of course not. Of course, those things are going to persist. But in the current media age, when we're all so inundated with information, I think especially people that are growing up as natives in these eras, they're less susceptible to traditional advertising, right? They want to connect with people. They want to hear what individual people have to say. So if you already have this successful business based on what you've done, I mean, tremendous. Keep those things going. But if you want to align yourself with the way things are going to pivot into the future of marketing, I think you need to create content and look no further. If you're familiar with Morning Brew, Alex Lieberman, the founder of Morning Brew, one of the most successful newsletters of all time, sold the company for $75 million, took a little bit of a break, and then he came back and launched a new business. And that new business is all about founder-led content online. So the big players are doing it, and there's no way it's going to pivot the other way, in my opinion.
Yeah, we even have Alex Hermosi, who didn't start that way. He actually said it himself. Like one of the biggest mistakes I made was not starting to publish content online, and he only started once he had like over 100 million business.
It's unbelievable, right? And there is genuinely no drawback. I mean, assuming you're not being intentionally inflammatory, assume you're doing things that a normal human being would do. I think, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, some of the biggest benefits that you see are things that you never expected, right? It's all about attraction, right? And the more you put yourself out into the world, the more eyeballs you get, the more people that will be attracted to you and will give you opportunities. I mean, I think Dana mentioned at the beginning of this call, I'm currently writing 2 books. I had never written a book before. It's always been my dream. It's everything I've ever wanted to do. And the only reason I got these opportunities is because I started posting on LinkedIn. Writing books wasn't my goal, but it was my dream. And it did happen organically because I put my thoughts out in the universe. So I think as a business owner, you've got all these ideas about how LinkedIn or social might benefit your business. But I'm telling you, some of the biggest things that are going to happen to you are things you never even expected.
Adam, what are some of those big, really unexpected benefits that happened for some of your clients?
I think the biggest things that come to mind are revenue streams that didn't initially exist. I think one of the most effective things any business owner can do, of course, is to interview their clients or to survey their clients. And depending on the business model that you have, that can be really difficult to do, especially if you're a one-to-many model, or maybe you can send out a survey and people will click the buttons, but we know surveys are unreliable. So what I've found with a handful of my clients is that by posting content and paying attention to what resonates with people, what people say in the comments, where else people ask for help or say, hey, this would be valuable, all of a sudden a creator who's trying to raise capital for a business now has a newsletter that's monetizable, or now does mentorship or whatever it might be. So I think it's the ability to listen to what your audience genuinely wants, as opposed to hoping you're picking the right angle, if that makes sense.
I'll be honest with you, I did not expect that answer. But I trained as a social scientist, like empirical research and so on. So I've been trained on how to do surveys and interviews and all of that. And surveys are the most unreliable form of feedback that exists. It's just unbelievable how unreliable it is. You'd probably be better off just go hang out in the places where these people you want to interview hang out and just start asking them questions in person, which is not scalable on the other hand, because you need to do hundreds of these, right? But anytime there is any kind of survey data, it has to be treated with so much caution and scrutiny, and it's almost never the case that this works, really.
Yeah,
No doubt.
that's why marketing, the only actual reliable data is the one that clients give you with their wallet. Yeah, I mean, you can
Yeah.
have an idea, but until they pay for it, you don't know if it's going to sell. They can tell you they're going to buy it, and that doesn't always translate to reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of the beauty, right? When you build in public, when you put your thoughts out in the universe, you're able to fully vet and test demand, but before you do something, you can create these offers. For instance, so here's a great example. I was on X the other day, and I saw a gentleman on there who's relatively well known in the crypto space. His name's Nat Eliason. And he has, 70,000 followers and change, I think primarily because of cryptocurrency content. And he was talking about how he uses AI to build personalized and customized apps. And somebody responded to him and said, hey, Nat, I would love to learn how to do this. I can see it's the way of the future, but I have zero technical knowledge. I've never coded anything in my entire life. Would you consider teaching a course about this? A bunch of people responded and said, I'm also interested. I'm also interested. I'm also interested. Literally within 6 hours, he had set up a landing page and a Stripe payment link. He had more than 300 people sign up for a $400 course. The guy made $120,000 in 6 hours for an idea that had never existed before then, because somebody said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? He had trust built into his brand and he had people in front of him. I mean, that's the sort of stuff we talk about. There is literally no drawback to creating a personal brand, to creating content online. This stuff changes lives. It's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw your post on that. That's actually quite incredible, but
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, I used to to talk a lot about that. Like one of the things that I enjoyed the most about LinkedIn is the immediate feedback that you get.
Yeah. It's so easy to just look into analytics and just know, okay, this flopped, analyze why it flopped, this went viral, why did it go viral? Like it's so much of feedback you can get. It's unbelievable. But speaking about this, Adam, so everyone who's around LinkedIn knows that like there is so much bad content. There's just some people where you read what they write and you're asking yourself, okay, I know you probably don't any better, but what were you thinking? So my question to you is, especially with what we said about the trends of marketing going forward, what do you think are the secrets, like the key ingredients that we need to make noise on LinkedIn?
So there are a couple of things that come to mind. First and foremost, and everybody's going to say, yeah, I know. But hooks, guys, are just so much more important than you can possibly think. I worked with, or I paid, quite frankly, a good portion of money for a consulting call with, really big A-list LinkedIn creator last year. And the biggest takeaway I had, he said, most people think they have a content problem. In reality, those people have a hook problem. I mean, I can't tell you, I intentionally, make an effort to go out and comment on a handful of new profiles every day. And sometimes I'll just get so fed up because the hooks are so bland, I can't bring myself to do it. And there's a lot of content out there's really no excuse to not create good hooks. So many creators have shared their secrets, shared what to do behind it. We don't need to belabor the point here, but I'm telling you, as important as you think hooks are, they are more important. Think about how much content is going out into the world today. How are you going to stand out? I think there are a lot of people that like think they write good hooks, but they really don't, So hooks. And the second thing is, having conviction in your beliefs and being willing to stand behind those beliefs. I'm never an advocate for being inflammatory for the sake of being inflammatory. I don't think you should write content with the sole design to go viral. You can do that if you want to. It's going to destroy your personal brand because there are going to be things that you don't believe. But I do think when you have a belief, it is critical to state that belief clearly, right? Stand your ground. Don't sit on the fence. You can't neuter your content to try to please everybody, right? What you want to do is repel people that you don't want to work with. And in doing so, you're
Mm.
going to attract people that you do want to work with. So have a stance, be willing to say something, be willing to take some flack, be the subject of some mean comments. That's okay. It's a good thing. It's a sign that you're going in the right direction. So write better hooks and have conviction in the things you believe.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
resonate with this. I resonate with this so much because I had a post a while ago that went really viral where I was saying that the worst pushback that I ever got in the DMs or trying to get someone on a call was this lady who just she went at me, man. She went at me. She was like, "How dare you ask me these things? You don't know me. You don't know my business." And I was asking some really innocent question like, "How's LinkedIn lead gen going? Like, are you having success with it?" Because I see she's on LinkedIn. She's posting very regularly. So it's clear she's there for LinkedIn lead gen. So she could have just said, "Hey, I don't need a lead gen person right now. Thank you very much. Have a good day." But she went berserk at me. So I just literally told the story. And to me, and I've always felt this way, when people get so fussed at someone asking about their leads, business, sales, revenue, whatever, the reason is because it's going really badly and they
Because it
feel really
hurts.
badly about it. Yeah, and it hurts. And also, these are people who are never going to grow until they want to face that problem and say, yeah, I probably have a revenue issue right now. And maybe my business is not that special. Maybe my lead generation isn't where it has to be right now? Oh my God, the pushback I got underneath. This was unbelievable. On one side, I had the salespeople who were like, yeah, finally someone said it. And then all the rest of the business owners who were probably exactly like that same lady, just pushing back madly. And honestly, I didn't feel an ounce of guilt for saying it because I do believe that if you are that fast about talking about your revenue, then you really have an issue?
Yeah. So that's the example of you talking about your beliefs. Yeah. I mean, that's what you stand for. You stand for being direct. If you want to sell, then sell. So those who don't resonate with that message, they're probably not the right people to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Exactly.
this post repelled a lot of people, and I'm actually happy that it did.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And when you get the whole goal, right? I'm not again. I'm not saying that every piece of content has to go viral. And of course, as J.K. Molina teaches us, likes are not cash, right? Just because you get a bunch of likes doesn't mean you make a bunch of money. But if you do want to expand your reach, you have to be able to figure out how to trigger people's emotions, right? Virality is all about emotion. And so you know
Mm,
that you're doing something right when you do get pushback, right? When people get mad at you, like you've struck a nerve, you've said something that's true. You know what you'll find a lot of the time, of course, I'm wrong all the time online, right? People point out things like I'm certainly not above reproach, but what you'll find a lot of the time is that it's projection, right? People will get very, very
yeah.
angry at you because, like you said, Dana, you mentioned something that is a problem for them and it hits that nerve and it hits that pain point. And so when you see that, that's positive feedback. It might feel negative, but that's a sign that you're going in the right direction. You should keep hitting that pain point.
You hit a real nerve
Absolutely.
last week.
Me?
Well, last week or the week before that, you hit a real nerve
I sure
there.
did. I sure did. Yeah. I wrote a post, I think it was about 10 days ago now, about how I genuinely believe that moving forward, the best money making opportunities for young people entering the workforce will be done with a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, right? With AI, with coding, all that sort of stuff, personal branding. And I specifically mentioned that I think, in the past, that doctors, lawyers, and bankers were the standard answer for, how do I make the most money? And I don't think that's true anymore. That post went mega viral. It got over 5 million impressions, and boy, did I get a lot of hate for it. I wear this as a badge of honor, but if you're familiar with the LinkedIn Lunatics subreddit, I did get my first post on there, which I'm proud of. And actually, as I was writing the post, that was going through my mind. What would I have to say to get this onto LinkedIn Lunatics? So, that post is like a great example. I stand behind everything I said there. I 100% agree with it. I didn't make any of that up. My goal was to not go viral, but I am going to frame my thoughts in a way that increases their potential to go viral, right? So I'm going to
Of course.
eliminate nuance. Like I'm going to take out things that would soften the stance. I'm going to let people yell at me about them in the comments. Again, none of that's fabricated. I believe every word of what I wrote, but I am going to write it in a way that is firmer, or as firm as I can possibly be. But yeah, that was a fun one.
I think we
That's a
can we
great
can
tip. Actually, I'm
yeah.
guilty of doing that all the time, of actually nuancing stuff, because I always try to explain a bit more, and no, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but you're right. I mean, that's not the right way to go about posting online. And you reminded me of with this idea of the future being not the doctors and the typical professions. You remind me of a story that Russell Brunson tells. Like he had a conversation with his son, and his son asked him, like, if you say that the value you bring to the world is directly what repaid by the amount of money you make, how is it that you make a lot more money than a surgeon? And he said, I bring less value than a surgeon to one person, but I bring that value to millions of people at the same time. So exponentially, I'm bringing a lot more value at once than a surgeon is. And this is not to remove I mean, to take importance away from the job of the surgeon, but it's just the scale is a very important factor when it comes to value and revenue, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had not heard that story before. That is really interesting.
Yeah, Adam, I think one of the reasons why you ruffled so many feathers with that post was because you added the screenshot of the doctor. I think this was really like the tipping point. It would have gone viral without it, but having this was a picture of an older doctor, and I think the headline said something along the lines of, "We're here, we're 65, and we're in the ER because the 30-year-olds are on their laptops." Something along the lines of that, yeah.
You're spot on. You're spot on. There's a couple of different, if we keep going down this path, but I think one thing that I'm starting to, I've been posting on LinkedIn for basically 2 years, and it still feels like all the time, like, oh my gosh, I just learned something new, or I'm changing my strategy in this way. And one thing to your point is I'm starting to start with visuals as opposed to starting with copy and trying to put the visual in there. If I want to figure out if I'm going to write a post with the intention of just getting impressions, like if I don't care about leads and I want to go as viral as possible, I'm probably going to start with the image. I think the two things that are stopping people from scrolling are one, the hook, and two, the image. So it's very hard pill to swallow for me as a writer to admit that the visual is probably more important than the fourth line of my copy, but that's the reality. So you're spot on. That was, it was a professional photo. It had a quote in there. People could have just looked at the photo itself and they could have commented from the photo. I'm sure there were a lot of people that did. So I think that's a really astute observation. It's something that I'm trying to focus on more is more scroll stopping visuals and more visuals that can be commented on if they stood alone by themselves.
But you said
Mm.
something very important. You use the adjective scroll stopping because they have different functions, the hook and the visual, right? So the visual is much faster to stop the scroll because reading even 4 or 5 words takes a lot longer than the visual. It shocks you, so it stops the scroll. From there, the hook will do its job, but yeah, there's different functions that each of them play. And I mean, I'm not good with visuals, and so I feel you there.
It's a great point, and it goes back to, I think one of the funniest things about LinkedIn is how many selfies are on the platform. If you posted on LinkedIn or on like X like you did on LinkedIn, you would get absolutely eviscerated for posting all these selfies, right? People, granted that platform is kind of a cesspool, but I think I was guilty of this too, right? When I came on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, selfies do well. Selfies get me engagement. I mean, there's nothing in LinkedIn's code that says if selfie 10x impressions, right? That doesn't exist. Selfies that do well are good pictures, are cool pictures, are things that make people want to stop and make people want to look and spend more time on the photo. So again, processing your visuals through this lens, keep in mind that although algorithms on social media are a black box, you can pretty safely assume that the top line purpose of any social media algorithm is to keep users on that platform as long as possible, right? That's why algorithms punish outside links. That's why algorithms don't want you to go and visit somebody's website or go and visit a different social media. So if you think about your visuals from that perspective, what is going to keep people on this platform for longer, for more engaged? I think that's the best framework that you can start to improve your visuals through.
I just realized something. One of the reasons why viral posts go really viral is because people, while they're taking the time to comment, they're actually increasing the dwell time on the post.
It's a snowball effect, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has never occurred to me before, by the way.
Like I
I want
said,
to
you learn something new every day. Yeah.
I want to ask you something still on the hook. You mentioned the hook, and I think we didn't spend enough time there. I want to go into strategy as well. But before that, the hook, like David Ogilvy said, 80 cents out of your dollar is the headline. I mean, that's how important it is. This is people who are spending money and millions of dollars on advertising, and they're focusing 80% of their time on the headline for a reason. Uh, how do you go about, like, what is a good hook for you, Adam? Like, how do you craft a good hook? Like, how do you make? And I know this has been said a lot of times, but I'd like to get it from you
Yeah.
specifically.
So again, it goes back to emotion, right? I'm trying to I have a list of emotions that I'll look at, anger, happiness, joy, excitement, WTF, things like first off, what emotion am I trying to trigger? And a lot of the time it's not really an emotion, it's relatability. If I were to read this, would I stop? Because can I relate to this? And that's what people want from creators and people want from people they do business with. So again, everything online in terms of gaining attention is about triggering or pinpointing an emotion. So I always want to think about whether or not the hook is going to be emotional. From a very practical perspective, I try to make my hooks as short as possible, very punchy, very easy to read, very quick. I like generally 2-line hooks, boom, boom, really short. I don't think there's anything wrong with 1-line hooks, and I'll do them on occasion. This is just a personal preference thing. Um, I love showing transformations in hooks, and people love seeing transformations in hooks. In 2022, I hated my job. In 2025, I do what I love for a living and work from coffee shops. Obviously, we're going off the top. We can do a lot better than that. But painting transformations, taking on emotion, and then this is something that I don't know if I created or whatever it is, but I always talk about playing Scrabble with your hooks, trying to make the words in your hook have as high of a Scrabble score as possible. And this goes into the post too, right? When you think about how people consume and read content online, the answer is essentially that they don't, right? If you know the Nielsen company, I think they're US based, but maybe I'm wrong, but they're the ones that track to see how many viewers a certain television episode gets or whatever it may be. And they do a lot of media studies, and they've been conducting this one study since 1997 about how people read online. And they check to see how it's changed over the years. The answer is one, people don't read online, they skim. And two, that has never changed in the last 28 years. So when we think about how people look at hooks and then look at the post as a whole, if your hook doesn't have a specific number, like a one, two, three, four, something like a dollar sign, something like a proper noun, something like an X, a C, a J, a V, you're giving a bunch of very bland words to people whose whole goal is to skim. So I think about like writing my hooks and writing my post as literal hooks. Like I'm going to try to put things throughout the post that are going to stand out when my reader inevitably skims. If you're using a bunch of words like there and are and we and because and them and they and these things that don't stand out, that aren't proper nouns, that don't have interesting letters, that don't have numbers, like people are just going to skim right past. So you need to think about like how people actually consume the content. And I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but we were talking about hooks originally, but that's how I look at it. You actually
No,
literally have to
it's
hook people.
yeah, it's an important one because I mean, when they're reading your hook, you are competing with everybody else on the feed. So the more your hook stands out, the more it will make them click read more, and that's the objective, isn't it? I mean, in direct response copywriting, we know that what our words are never trying to sell. Only the last words are trying to sell. The subject line on an email wants you to open the email. The copy of the email, the first line wants you to read the next line. The next line wants you to consume the to the third line, and so on until the next line wants you to click on the link, not sell anything. Click on the link to visit the sales page, right? So everything is just trying to bring you one step forward, and the hook is the first step. So if you don't get them to take the first step, they're not going to do anything else.
Love, great example. I mean, that's perfectly said. And the thing that you can do is always be honest with yourself and ask yourself, would this make me stop? Would this make me click read more? I think if more people were honest with themselves and looked at their hooks through those frameworks, people would change their hooks a lot of the time.
Dana, you're speaking, but I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted because I was coughing. Um, Adam, so from the positive things that create really banging content on LinkedIn, you said, so first of all, it was belief, then hooks, and then also tone down the nuance and don't be afraid to be bold. On if we flip it on a negative side, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when writing? I mean, apart from using boring hooks, of course.
Yeah, I think um, only talking about your industry or industry insights or things like that. Basically, if I can Google it, I don't want to go to LinkedIn and read about it. That's not why I'm
Mm,
here. That I'm not interested in that. I can go ask ChatGPT literally anything and learn anything I want. And so you taking ChatGPT and copying and pasting onto your LinkedIn profile doesn't do me any good. And I can tell when you don't remove the hash marks and the asterisks that you literally copied and pasted from ChatGPT. But that's the answer, right? Is if it is Googleable, there is no reason to post it under your personal brand. People want to do business with people. As a ghostwriter, I've been asked if I will write company content for a company page. And I'll say I'm willing to, but candidly, you're going to be wasting your money. It is much more important to post under your face because people want to do business with people. And once we realize that, we understand that people want to learn about people. They want to know about their stories. They want to understand what makes them tick, right? Humans by nature, we're tribal. And it goes back to that initial point where we're talking about the goal is to repel people you don't want. And by doing so, you will attract people that you do want. So the answer, again, to your initial question is if you're just posting industry related content, if you're just posting insights, things like that, and you're never telling your story, you're never talking about what makes you unique, what makes you different, you got to kind of embrace it. You got to put yourself out there a little bit. I'm not saying you have to be crazy vulnerable and talk about the traumatic things in your life. In fact, it's probably better if you didn't, but you do need to share your story. And if your content doesn't do that, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, that's such a good rule of thumb. If you can Google it, then don't post about it. I'm actually going to write it down somewhere because I feel like I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that, definitely. Here and there, maybe not all of the time, but definitely here and there. Because I feel like there's a whole wave of how-to content that people label as middle of funnel content that broke through in 2023, really shifted people's perspective on what they need to post on LinkedIn. And it's probably if you just write how to, the way that I see that, how to instead of how I, just really, really ticks off your audience and it actually makes you lose your credibility because then someone's going to read that and they're going to think, yeah, but I've tried that. It didn't work for me. Your credibility is just lost instantly. Because if you say how I did this, no one can argue with you for one, because this is your own experience. No one's going to come in the comment section and tell you, well, no, this is not how you did it. You know?
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Adam, I have a question for you. Not that we've been doing anything else, but I just thought of something. If someone listens to a podcast and so far we've convinced them that they need to start getting on LinkedIn, they've got a successful business, they need to work on the founder-led marketing part. How would you advise them to start out?
Boy, that's a great question. If we're talking very practically, like the first post you should write, I think the first post, anytime I onboard a new client, the first post we're always going to do is the origin story, right? Where you came from, what you're doing, how you got to get to where you are. Again, your goal always is for your audience to get to know you and to associate with you and to join your tribe. So I would think about, what are your core beliefs, right? What drives your business? Why are you doing what you're doing? What's a strongly held tenet you have in your business or your industry that other people don't have? What are things that you believe that other people don't believe? What hills would you die on? And you can see that the theme here is that I'm talking about you and I'm talking about things that you are convicted in. So I'd be trying to figure these things out and get these things out of you. And it can be difficult, sometimes to be honest with yourself. And what can be even more difficult is feeling comfortable taking those stances from your brain and putting them online. And what I'll tell you is another great rule of thumb is the less you want to click that post button, the more you should click that post button. That is generally a sign that you're saying something that you're not super comfortable with, something that might upset people, something that you don't want to go forward with. Every time I've felt that, it's been something that has done well for me, for my personal brand, because that is a sign you're saying something with conviction. So it's understanding yourself, understanding your beliefs. I would also, if we're talking very practically, like starting from ground zero, go through and study other creators for a while. Like, again, that's a cliche, but there's a great Chrome extension. I'm not affiliated with them. I wish I was. Shout out Clio if you want to sponsor me. But Clio is a great Chrome extension. You can add it. You can go to any creator's profile, and it's going to pull up all of their top posts. And look at their hook, look at their formatting, look at how short their posts are, look at what words they use. I mean, guys, the blueprints are out there. A lot of people say that they don't want to create content because they're not good writers. That's great. That's what puts food on my table. I can appreciate that. I can empathize with that. But the reality is you can just go out and mimic what other people have done with your own story and have a lot of success. It's better than just firing off in the dark.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, actually. You don't need to copy exactly what they're saying, but you can use your intelligence to like break down the format and try to templatize it and try to fill in your own story into it. So you don't have to discover the wheel here, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I think, a lot of people have trouble getting out of their own way. And they think that if I just
Mm.
go on LinkedIn and post and there's a bunch of paragraphs in there that people will read it because I have a great story to tell. I mean, you got to pay attention to what has worked before. I'm always trying to have more humility and remind myself that I have so much left to learn, and that's the truth. And I think that's a really healthy outlook to have when you're creating content online.
Yeah, it never stops, the learning part. You're always going to find something you do better and better and better.
Yeah, if you want to master something, you need to keep improving it, don't you?
Yeah, I
All right.
think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Fred.
No, no, keep going. Sorry.
I was going to say the only other thing I was going to say is one thing with LinkedIn and content creation specifically that I've always felt to be true is that LinkedIn's a really cool platform, but it's also a slow platform in terms of trends and in terms of picking up on things. Like if you look at if you're chronically online like I am, I'm sorry for you, and I wish we could be different, but it's a good thing if you're going to create content. If you spend a lot of time on Instagram, a lot of time on TikTok, a lot of time on X, wherever it might be, keep in mind that those platforms are further ahead on the cutting edge than LinkedIn. Usually by the time something comes to LinkedIn, it's already gone from those other platforms. So if you're just in like pure growth mode and you want to, just get some takes out there and get some thoughts out there, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of leads. But if you can find these trending topics, take these trending memes, these visuals, these videos, stuff that's blowing up on other platforms, and bring them over to LinkedIn the second you see them, you can get ahead of the general LinkedIn audience and do really well that way. So if you're gonna, doom scroll for 4 hours a day, you might as well make it worth your time.
That's a very good segue into strategy, actual content strategy. So you mentioned like you're talking more about a virality type content, which arguably, well, I wouldn't say it's arguably, but like some people would probably argue with me on this. Uh, I I have seen and I have plenty of proof that the more viral the content is, the fewer leads you will attract with it, right? Because it's broader content has more virality, if has more of a virality effect. So the broader it is, the less appealing it is to a segment of to a specific segment, right? Of an audience. So, like, how do you now approach this strategically? How would you go about, let's say, someone who doesn't have a content a current strategy, or a current is not really doing much online. Maybe they are posting a few posts on LinkedIn, but they're not doing anything with it. They don't have a lot of followers. Like, how would you approach a strategy for someone like this? Like, would you have like like maybe a post per week on on more of a viral subject, so it broadens their following? How would you also create something that is more attractive for leads, that will get you more clients? Could you like kind of explain your approach to that?
Absolutely. So, not to cop out, but the first question I would ask is what is your goal? What are you trying to do here? And I do think a lot of people start and like don't really know what they're trying to do here. And 90% of the clients I work with have the same answer. I want ROI on my marketing spend. If I'm going to hire you, I want to make money off of that. Cool, right? Okay, so we're going to focus a little bit on growth and impression type posts, but for the most part, we're going to stay middle and bottom of funnel, and we're not going to worry about the virality of so much. We're just going to go for leads. But, there are a lot of people that will say, I just want to be seen as a thought leader. I have too much business right now and I can't really take on more, but I'd like to grow my brand for when that day comes, or maybe if I want to discover other offers within my audience. Okay, fantastic. If that's the case, we're not going to try to CTA anything. We're not going to show any case studies. We're not, what we're going to do is just try to broaden your reach, right? We're just going to try to get more people to your profile. But all else equal, I am a firm believer that going viral is good. There's a common phrase in the LinkedIn sphere that impressions don't matter, and and going viral is no good if it doesn't get you leads. I think that's unequivocally false. I think that's an insane thing to think. I can't understand why anybody would try to make a good thing about not getting eyeballs in your profile. I do not agree with that. So let me be very clear about that. However, there is obviously a time and a place to do that, and then a time and a place within your content strategy to intentionally try to not get a lot of reach, to incentivize people that are within your sphere. So, if I'm writing, call it 5 posts a week, and my goals are I'm starting out and I'm newer and I'd like to get more eyeballs on my profile, but of course I want to get some leads. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd be writing growth oriented posts. I'd be looking top of funnel, right? I'd be finding trending things online and sharing my opinions about them, my strongly held, firm stance opinions on those things. I would be, telling stories of other successful people, right? I would be saying things that I believe that are possible to strike controversy. So I would be writing 3 posts out of 5 every week if I was just starting off with the pure intention of hopefully going viral or getting as many impressions as possible. The other 2 days a week, I'd be coming back into the middle of funnel and into the bottom of funnel. Dana, like you talked about, how I sort of content, case study content, client results, specific industry insights that you can talk about from your experience and put your spin on. So if you're starting from ground zero, it can be really, really difficult if you don't have a strategy to get clients when you don't have eyeballs. So I do think eyeballs early on in the journey are important. Once you hit that critical mass or once you see some results, if you say, look, I don't care about growing anymore, I just want ROI. Okay, let's flip that script, right? Let's talk maybe once a week for growth posts. And then 4 times a week, we're going to hammer the case studies. We're going to hammer the middle of funnel. We're going to hammer the bottom of funnel. So of course, like anything else, it all begins with defining your goals and working backward from there. But of course, you're never going to get business by shouting into the void. So getting traction to begin with is important.
This makes so much sense.
Yeah. So how would you like? Can you give us some benchmarks? Like, let's say, at which point would you say that it's at which point in a business? Obviously, it's hard to speak generically, right? But let's say at the moment, for example, let's take my account for example. Uh, my main focus is to drive business, is to get clients, right? I'm not really focused on growing a follower base, but obviously I know I need to. And you've addressed that very the importance of it, and obviously I totally agree with what you said there, even though I'm guilty of not doing it as well as I should. So at which point, and for each business, would you say, like, maybe post one post that has the potential to go viral per week, post 2 posts that has the potential to go viral, or focus 100% on virality? And like, how much would you, like, let's say, turn the wheel to each to tweak a proper content strategy for a small business who definitely needs leads? It's leaving, the leads are all coming from LinkedIn. That's where the business is being generated.
Yeah, so I think, and this is going to not be a direct answer of your question, but this is what I would tell a client in that position, or if I were consulting for myself, and trying to figure out my own business. I would remind them that content is not by any means the entire engine, right? The content is not everything. Content is
Of
kind of
course.
is what drives things, right? And content critically important, but you should understand, where does, I think you just said LinkedIn is the only lead gen source. Okay, great. Where does LinkedIn, fall in your overall funnel? Do you have a lead magnet? Are you capturing emails? What are you doing with your outbound content? Are you sending connection requests? Have you run a list in Sales Navigator of your ideal clients? Are you forming relationships? Are you starting 20 conversations a day, with people who could become your ideal clients? Like, are you doing these other things, or are you just sitting there and posting? Because if you're just sitting there and posting, listen, you're not going to have a whole lot of success, right? This is one piece of the overall puzzle. And I know for a fact that a lot of people are not comfortable selling. People just want to get out there and they want to post and they want to believe that hope and pray and cross your fingers is a marketing strategy, that the inbound leads will magically come. And inbound leads will come over time, right? If you're good at what you do and you can show the proof and you can write the sort of content that attracts people. But look, early on, I was blasting DMs, man. I was like, Dan, people were yelling at me, people were upset with me. Who are you to ask these questions to me? That sort of stuff. But it works. So, if I'm talking to that newer creator, I'm getting more granular about their overall strategy and what they're doing from an outbound perspective than I am really sweating the gritty details of the content.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. And that's what we're about, Dana and I. I mean, and she's the outreach person. I'm the inbound. We actually have an episode called Inbound versus Outbound Outreach. So, absolutely 100% what you said. I support it. And if you're watching the recording of this, you'll find those episodes in the channel, either on YouTube or Spotify. But I wanted just the content side of it, right, from you to explain the content side of it, because let's assume that this person is generating leads from LinkedIn. They, I would say, because that's what I do create lead magnets and a whole inbound system with an email list for people. So, and I know that most people don't have it from experience. So let's assume they don't have this. Maybe they're doing some DMs, doing a bit of outreach. But how how would you tweak their content strategy to play into that? And maybe, yeah. Please do lower their expectations, because I do believe that you're right. The expectations are very high on the content side of things.
Yeah, so I think, clarity is always number one. I think within content, people get tripped up a lot of the time trying to be cute and trying to be clever, and you can read the content 4 or 5 times and still not understand what they're trying to say. Clarity, 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 clarity. There is too much content out there for people to spend time on your content if they don't immediately grasp what you're saying. Be clear, be short, be concise, to the point. Now, another, big mistake I think that I see a lot of creators making, and again, this is something I did for literally 18 months before I started to figure it out, is burying your CTAs in posts that aren't really lead gen oriented posts. So a lot of the time, what you'll see people do is, write a personal transformation post or a storytelling post or something that's a really good piece of content. And then after 150, 200, 300 words, they're going to put a little CTA at the bottom, DM me if you want to work together or hop on my calendar. Look, there's a time and place for CTA and lead gen posts, but the more you self promote and the more external links you include, the more you're going to hurt your reach. So I think it's important for people to clearly define between, again, what posts am I writing for growth and what posts am I writing for leads. Listen, if you want leads, just ask people. Like it's not quite that simple, but if you have over time, once you start building trust up within your brand, once you start having people that know you're worth what you're talking about, once you start having some case studies and things like that, go out and write a 4-line post that has a great hook and then says, if you want to work with me or I'm accepting one new client, sign up here. And that post is not going to do well from an impression perspective, but anybody that sees it, they're not going to have a chance to get lost in the middle of it. They're not going to have a chance to get confused. Go out and write posts that ask for the business in a very short, very clear way. Like, not every post has to be this great, cute piece of storytelling. You can just ask people for business.
Yeah. I'm really loving the brutal honesty here, Adam. That's for sure. Um, no, these are some really great tips, honestly. Like, I have to tell you, I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for a very long time. I also do this for a living, yeah. There are things you said that I had not really thought about before, which to me is a measure of an absolutely fantastic
Thank you.
conversation. Um, let's say someone has been on LinkedIn for quite a bit. They have seen the merit of being on active on the platform, building a personal brand or whatever. They've seen a couple of leads come in. When is the time to turn to a ghostwriter and outsource the content creation?
Me up. I love that. I think the majority of my clients are people that come to me and say, look, I see the value in social media. I just don't have the time, right? I'm a founder. I'm a CEO.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to write. I don't want to do this. I understand I need to. I understand I should be. That is the vast majority of my clients, but a lot of the time, I'll talk to people that feel like they're too close to the situation. And anybody that says that, boy, I commend you for your self-awareness, but it kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier. where it can be really difficult to write your story, to self-promote a little bit, to write your opinions,
Mm.
and then hover over that post button and actually click it. I've had numerous conversations with clients that basically say, I hire you to click post because, man, I just like it freaks me out to get these ideas out there. So I think for most people, it's a timing thing. I think for your example, Dana, if it's somebody that has already built up some success and some following on LinkedIn, I think it comes down to whether or not you enjoy it, to be candid with you. Like, is this still something that you want to do, or would you prefer to outsource it? If again, radical honesty, radical accountability, there is nothing I would like more than to hire a ghostwriter for my own content. I can't tell you how sick I am of getting on LinkedIn from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock every single morning and commenting for an entire hour. I've been doing it for like 2 years. I'm over it. But like, it works for me, right? And it's my business. So that's what it comes down to, is personal preference. If you've had some success here already, you enjoy doing it, great, keep doing it. But if you've had some success here and you're burned out, or your ROI would be higher if you spent that time elsewhere, okay, fantastic. That's a perfect time to bring in a ghostwriter, have somebody else do it for you, focus on other areas of your business that have higher magnitude.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Speaking of, what are some of the objections that people have against working with ghostwriters?
I was shocked at how big the stigma was about ghostwriters when I came into it. People don't like ghostwriters. It's an interesting thing. I think I understand the perspective to an extent. Of course, when we talk about personal branding, everybody, hammers how important authenticity is, right? And of course, I don't want to work with somebody if somebody else's words are behind their content. I'll feel like I'm being swindled a little bit, right? Like, this is not really you. What's going on there? But the reality is that's not how these engagements work. I think that is ignorant to the understanding of what a ghostwriter client relationship looks like. I always think of Dostoevsky when he wrote Crime and Punishment, and I think Brothers Karamazov. He actually didn't write a single one of those words himself. He dictated them, and then maybe his wife or his sister, somebody else in his life, was the one that actually wrote those words. That's what I'm doing, right? I'm getting on my calls with clients. I'm extracting their stories out of them. I'm taking their words and I'm formatting them in a way that I know is going to do well on LinkedIn. I'm picking out what hook is going to do well. I'm going to frame that story in a way that is going to increase engagement and bring in clients and things like that. But there is nothing I'm writing that is not told to me by a client, that this is not a core held belief, that this is not their own individual unique story. So I think that's where some of the stigma comes in, is people feel like, oh, this isn't actually that person. I mean, that couldn't be farther from the truth. I would not have clients if I was saying things that my clients didn't believe, or things that had not happened to my clients. I'm a glorified secretary, to be completely honest with you.
I love that.
Love the
Yeah.
candor.
Yeah.
Well, you're a really well paid secretary, so yeah,
Take it.
that's a really great way to frame you off, I have to say.
Yeah, if anybody needs a secretary, let me know.
Yeah, that's good. We're reaching the end, and we don't really have any questions to address. So, is there anything specifically you want to add to this episode?
It just
If
takes
there's
time.
one takeaway, Adam, that you'd like our audience to have, what would it be?
It's worth it. That's all I can say. Well, gosh, it's so hard to boil it down to one thing. It's worth it, and it takes time. But a lot of the time, I'll see this advice on LinkedIn that I really don't like, which is just keep showing up, just keep showing up, just keep showing up. Just eventually you're going to break through. But that's not true for everybody. Social media there's a lot of survivorship bias inherent in social media. The winners keep posting, the losers don't. Um, but I think a lot of people, and this is probably gonna will hurt my business a little bit, but a lot of people continue to post on LinkedIn when it's clear that it's not working for them. And in those instances, guys, it's not a virtue to continue to post into the void and do things that aren't getting you business. There's a difference between giving up and letting go. And if you're giving up before you give yourself a chance to have success, that's not a great thing. If you're identifying that this platform doesn't work for you, maybe you're not willing to put in the time to write the content, you're not willing to make the investment, it's okay to let go. So again, I don't want to paint this as a panacea that's going to solve every problem for every single person. There are business owners that will benefit tremendously from posting on LinkedIn. But if you've been showing up here for a year, you got no leads, you got no traction, you're not a failure if you give up. There are other ways to get business out there. Again, radical honesty. That's one thing that sticks in my craw, so I wanted to mention it.
Yeah,
That's
thank you
really
so
good.
much for
Yeah.
saying that. Thank you so much for saying that because I personally know people who've been active for over 2 years on LinkedIn and they've not seen any ROI from that. I'm like, why do you do it? And the answer is actually really depressing. It's like, well, it's kind of like a habit now. Like this habit is costing you more than 5 hours a week. That's 20 hours a month. Like, what a habit is that? Like, go work out, like run in a park. That's a better habit to have, you know?
I just thought of something here, like that I would like to also get your take on. Like, why LinkedIn versus every other social media platform? Why would you post content on LinkedIn and not on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you think you can think of?
People are so mean on other platforms. No, I mean, look, I think for a lot of people listening to this, for founders and CEOs specifically, like LinkedIn is the number one B2B platform. Like we know this for a fact. We know we can look at the LinkedIn statistics. I don't have them in front of me, but the vast majority of LinkedIn users, right, like have a strong salary. The vast majority of people on LinkedIn use LinkedIn as a decision-making platform. Like people come to LinkedIn expecting to do business. Like that's kind of the unspoken agreement that we have when we log onto this platform. So it's a business related social media. Look, if you're doing like e-commerce or something like that, yeah, TikTok's your game, no doubt. Like that blows up e-com brands all the time. If you're trying to sell courses, maybe X is a better place for you. I don't do much on Instagram or Facebook, so I can't speak to those. But that's the answer. LinkedIn's a business platform. It's the place that people make B2B decisions. It's the place where decision makers are. It's one of the only social medias where you can bring people into your funnel without having them to follow you. You can send connection requests. You can send voice notes. You can be very personalized. So if you're a founder, CEO of a business, your B2B, anything like that, it's the biggest no-brainer of all time if you're choosing a platform.
Yeah, I love that. We keep throwing this stat out there, but 80% of all B2B leads are generated on LinkedIn.
It's crazy. It's crazy that having this set in mind are some people who are still skeptical about LinkedIn.
Yeah, I understand it. I think especially when I go out in my real life and I tell people I write LinkedIn posts for a living. They're like, what you mean people like go on that platform and what do you they do stuff other than get jobs there? So yeah, it's crazy, which also indicates to me that we're still early to this game. It indicates to me that if you get in right now as a founder or a CEO, you're gonna be ahead of the curve. Of course, things are getting
Yeah.
more and more saturated by day, but if you look at the average person out there and their understanding of these platforms, and the more we transition to being online, like it's still early. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, if you compare it to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, for example, definitely.
Yep. Adam, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for joining us. Um, if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching. Make sure that you're following the show, wherever you are watching it. Subscribe, follow, all those things to get the algorithm to like us as much as you do, if you do.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.